American Annals of the Deaf. Volume XLII, No. 6 November, 1897. The Modern Moloch. This is preeminently an age of experiment. The laboratory has become all-powerful and its votaries look to it for the settlement of 1,000 theories and 10,000 disputes over nature's myriad secrets. First mere hypothesis, then experiment, and finally demonstrated falsehood or truth. This is the steady round of modern science, the regular and beaten track of the searchers after truth. A scientist watches with thoughtful, questioning gaze the strange action of a geyser. He cannot rest till nature has yielded him her secret. Suddenly there breaks upon his mind a possible solution of the problem. He straightway goes to his laboratory, constructs an artificial geyser in miniature based upon his hypothesis, and in breathless suspense starts the geyser play. It succeeds, and there again in faithful repetition he sees the giant geyser's mysterious action. But the mystery has vanished. Thus, on every hand, with physical apparatus and chemical reagent, with microscope and scalpel, with the art of experimentation developed to its highest efficiency, the man of science is conquering the practical problems of the world. He is laying out for us the paths along which our brief span of 363 THIS content downloaded from 190.45.108.229 on Tuesday, February 10, 2026, 4 hours 11 minutes and 39 seconds UTC. All use subject to https://about.jster.org/terms. 354 The Modern Moloch. Life may be expended with the least resistance and the greatest return to the greatest number. Observe, however, that in the vast majority of experiments made by science the material used is without consciousness, suffers no pain or loss, and emerges from its ordeal in the laboratory neither better nor worse than at the beginning. The miniature geyser was made of metal and glass, and filled with heated water. Physical and chemical agents, metals, liquids, all these things enter in and come out of all experiments unaffected in the last analysis. Even biological experiments employ materials drawn from the plant and brute worlds, where self-consciousness or immortality does not exist, and so no eternal consequences to conscious beings are involved. But this modern rage for the construction of theories and hypotheses, which must be proved or disproved by elaborate experimentation, has invaded realms where the sole available material consists, not of the inanimate or non-self-conscious, but of the precious, helpless bodies and minds of children, whose childhood is their one solemn opportunity to prepare for life and eternity, and who will awake someday in manhood or womanhood to bless or curse the hands that molded them. The little ones, the children, they come to us from the hand of God, and with us stay year by year, depending, confiding, submissive, because they believe us when we say that we are wiser than they and our ways are better than theirs, or else because with the resistless machinery of a system we drive them onward in herds to suit our own plans. What though deepest instincts may rebel, and violated nature, rebounding upon the child, may distort or stunt its growth from what it might have been. So far away and misty are the experiences of our own childhood, so near and absorbing are our own plans, theories, and ambitions, that we sometimes gather the children in to train for afterlife, and straightway fall to using them. This content downloaded from 190.45.108.229 on Tuesday, February 10, 2026, 4 hours 11 minutes and 39 seconds UTC. All use subject to https://about.jster.org/terms. The Modern Moloch. 355 For our own experiments, for the vindication of theories, and the advancement of self-interests, forgetting that children are not as metal or liquid in our hands, and that our schools are not mere laboratories. True enough, this is putting it strongly. Yet in pondering over the accumulated literature of education, and especially over that of deaf-mute education from the days of Heinecke and de la Pay till now, I have often laid by book and pamphlet with an irresistible feeling that the deaf have too often suffered a double misfortune, that in addition to the loss of hearing they have too often been simply the material for desperate efforts to vindicate rival theories, rather than the object of a pure, sincere, and single-eyed desire to elevate them to the highest possible plane in life. The annals of all education, in fact, have something too much of this debasing alloy amid much pure gold. It is worthwhile for us to consider how we all stand in reality with regard to this solemn and significant matter. Mere professionalism is insidious and dangerous. It invades, for instance, the legal profession and presently leads many of its members to recede unconsciously from the broad human standard of right and justice into a certain narrow artificial standard, that permits acts and methods repulsive to honorable manhood. It is so in money-making circles everywhere. It creeps into the very folds of religion, and beguiles the ministers of God on earth to think more of upholding ecclesiastical formulae and sectarian dogmas than of urging upon sinning men the life and teaching of the Son of Man. Its subtle poison long ago entered the arteries of our own profession, leading us frequently to be more passionately and energetically engaged in the promotion of a dogma of method than in earnestly watching the actual life of the children themselves, to learn of them the true method or methods, and to see that they are happy, that they grow in nature's wise. This content downloaded from 190.45.108.229 on Tuesday, February 10, 2026, 4 hours 11 minutes and 39 seconds UTC. All use subject to https://about.jstor.org/terms. 356. The Modern Moloch way, and that in afterlife they really possess all that we so busily proclaim them to have after finishing our particular courses of instruction. Laboratory experiments have their just place, and even in child training experiments have a place, but let us watch with open eyes how far we go in this delicate process. It must never be forgotten for an hour that true science searches for facts and tries experiments not merely to perpetuate against all comers some prearranged theory, but purely to reveal truth. The loyal scientist relinquishes his hypothesis, the child of his own brain, with all cheerfulness when advancing knowledge condemns it. The world was centuries in learning this hardest of all lessons, and it still remains unlearned in many places, perhaps even in our own profession. At any rate, we can but hold ever before our minds those elemental facts, the vivid and continuous realization of which can alone save us from lapsing too much into narrow professionalism of the kind fatal to all true and broad progress. We must remember that our children are gathered in from an encircling world of human nature, whose delicate and profound laws govern all alike, whether deaf or hearing, that they have the same deep child need for the fullness of play and frolic as other children, and hence for some means of easy spontaneous intercommunication during a large portion of each day, and that finally, they must return soon to that outer world to live in happy contentment or bitter disappointment, according as we have dealt with them. Do we sufficiently study that afterlife of our pupils? Do we keep in touch with those conditions of life into which we launch the children, and do we really know by something better than conjecture just how they fare, whether better or worse, as the result of this or that experiment of ours? If we do not, it is time for us to get about remedying so glaring a defect in what might then be called the science of our work. This content downloaded from 190.45.108.229 on Tuesday, February 10, 2026, 4 hours 11 minutes and 39 seconds UTC. All use subject to https://about.jstor.org/terms. The Modern Moloch. 357-2. Many crimes have been committed in the name of liberty, of justice, and even of religion. Are we perfectly sure that none are being committed today in the name of education? It is an infirmity of men, written far and wide on the pages of history, to be eaten up with zeal in a cause at first righteous and beneficent, it may be, but in the end carried too far and made a fetish to which many victims are sacrificed. The world is better now than in the years of the Inquisition or the Keene of Terror, yet the roots of human nature remain essentially unchanged, and we of the present age need to watch ourselves sharply, if we would not repeat history under new forms. Among the causes that now excite the interest and enthusiasm of this generation is that of education. Certainly no grander or more beneficent movement than this could occupy and exercise the minds of men, unless it were possibly the promotion of Christianity directly considered. And yet even in the name of him who would not crush a bruised reed men have martyred their brethren by the thousand. It is not impossible, then, that even now, in this era of splendid achievement all along the line, there may be a martyrdom of thousands in the name of education, and future history be called upon to record the strange repetition of human folly, the latest casting of helpless children into the arms of a new Moloch. Do you question the possibility of this? Let us see. Within the past year, I have talked with a good many representative teachers and officers connected with the national school system of Great Britain, and, among other things, we discussed quite freely the results fees system. Under this, the national school teachers receive a special fee for every pupil that passes certain annual examinations conducted by government inspectors, the fees being this: content downloaded from 190.45.108.229 on Tuesday, February 10, 2026, 4 hours 11 minutes and 39 seconds UTC. All use subject to https://about.jster.org/terms. 358. The Modern Moloch. In addition to a regular fixed salary. How does this system, apparently just enough, really work out in practice? I was told by all that it simply tended to ruin the children. It stimulates the teachers to push their pupils to the utmost, bringing to bear upon them every possible form of pressure, either in the form of severe punishments for the least delinquencies or of strong incitements to hard study in the way of attractive rewards for excellence. Result: overstrain of immature children, physical breakdown in the delicate or the too willing, violent rebellion or systematic deception in the sturdy and strong, weariness and hatred of school life, the whole being kept by a strong tendency to be fully satisfied with mere artificial cramming along specific lines laid down by inspectors. The children are made old before their time by continuous forcing into unnatural channels of life and activity, such as Mother Nature never intended childhood to endure. Here, then, is a plain case in the realm of education where the zeal of thine house hath eaten me up. We see how the complete ruin of children may be brought about by a system inaugurated and promoted with the best intentions and for the good of children, not their sacrifice. So strong has been the growing condemnation of this system, however, that it has been dropped already in England, and doubtless will eventually be relinquished also in Ireland. Again, we frequently hear emphatic complaints regarding the overpressure brought to bear upon young boys and girls in our high schools and colleges, in the desperate attempt to stuff them with classics, literature, mathematics, languages, and a dozen branches of natural science, all within the shortest possible period. The rivalry among educational institutions and the competition for patronage leads them periodically to advertise longer and more ambitious curricula, and then to put extra pressure on this content downloaded from 190.45.108.229 on Tuesday, February 10, 2026, 4 hours 11 minutes and 39 seconds UTC. All use subject to https://about.jster.org/terms. The Modern Moloch. 359. Their students to master them all. Not only so, but internally the work of many such institutions is abnormally stimulated by the rivalry of energetic and ambitious projectors, each anxious to keep his own specialty well to the front, and thus led into placing too many and great exactions upon his students. The latter are forced to overstudy and ultimately to utter breakdown and the defeat of all practical aims in life. Very recently I saw a long and bitter complaint of this evil in the New York Nation. Especially do we hear of young girls being wrecked for life in this way. Now, all these things are clear evidences of an excessive zeal in the name of education, and show us that not yet is martyrdom extinct among men. But let us turn now to another and peculiarly isolated department of education, from whence we begin now to hear a cry as of men who find themselves the victims of a kindly meant but none the less mistaken course of treatment under the name of education. Among the many achievements of modern times, not the least noble and beneficent one has been the development of complete education for the deaf, and yet further, within that sphere, the bestowal of speech upon thousands of the dumb, which is a glorious victory for love and patience. A nobler, better, more purely Christ-like cause than this never fired the heart of man with zealous enthusiasm. Again and again, as if to ensure the attention of a negligent world, the Galilean teacher explicitly directed his own healing powers to members of this ignored class, and in the fullness of time his great implied command has been faithfully executed. Thousands of them that walked in endless silence may lift their hands today, and not their hands only but voices also, in thankful praise to their Redeemer, who cared not alone for the future life, but for the happiness of this earthly life as well. This content downloaded from 190.45.108.229 on Tuesday, February 10, 2026, 4 hours 11 minutes and 39 seconds UTC. All use subject to https://about.jster.org/terms. 3to the Modern Moloch. Buoy, stay a moment. Would we have the purity and fair name of our good cause stained by any martyrdom to an excessive zeal, as the greater enveloping cause of Christianity itself has been blotted by sacrifices on stake and rack? Let us not throw off any thought of this with an exclamation, impossible. The thing is possible, and according to the inexorable lessons of history it may even be probable. Without a question, it is a thing infinitely to be desired that all the dumb should speak, and that the deaf in their conversation with men should put away all thoughts of their deafness. If, like our Savior, we could quietly overleap the bounds of nature and restore to the deaf that which is lost, how gladly would we perform the miracle. But to mortal flesh this is not vouchsafed. Under our human limitations the precious boon of speech for those who hear no human voice must be bought with a price. Minimize it, ignore it, close our eyes to it as we may, it is bought with a price, not counted merely in gold and silver, would that it might be, but in hours and days of precious childhood devoted to strenuous patient mastery of infinite details, never dreamed of by the hearing child, which absorb energies that might be, ought to be, applied in certain other directions of unspeakable importance to mind and soul, in forbidden freedoms, natural to childhood, but sacrificed for ultimate ends. In lost advantages, which are enjoyed by those who are early given a freely flowing language for the exercise of heart and mind in the hours of play, and under the spell of platform eloquence. It is a thing every deaf child must reckon with. For the privilege of speech and lip reading, except in the case of a relatively small percentage, he must pay heavily, and as it were with his very heart's blood. But what if the price be paid, the heart life and the mind life delivered entire into the hands of the pure oral? This content downloaded from 190.45.108.229 on Tuesday, February 10, 2026, 4 hours 11 minutes and 39 seconds UTC. All use subject to https://about.jster.org/terms. The Modern Moloch. 361 Instructor, cheerfully, hopefully, trustfully, abiding in the promises made of a future complete restoration of speech, that shall be almost, yet, and perhaps fully, so it is intimated, the equal of that in the broad world beyond, with nothing lost in the growth of mind and heart, according to the guarantee. What if all this be done, and the critical, irrevocable years of childhood vanish, the course is finished, the school doors close behind, and then amid friend and stranger, work and pleasure, all the hurried, exacting, inconsiderate world, which has no special theories to promote, the great promised boon begins to shrivel, to fail somewhat here and to vex the mind there, and, at last, even to fall, as often happens, into disuse, like some costly but rusted machine, of which much was once expected, but now is more and more left to itself in some odd corner? Is this a mere bit of imaginative supposition? As you read it, friend of the deaf, do you recognize no type, of which instances in greater or less number are well known to you? There is wide variation in degree of similarity to this type, but still you cannot have known many of the deaf without knowing some that are cases in point. Are these not martyrs of modern education in one of its phases, the companions in sacrifice of the child undone under that results fees system and of the boy or girl wrecked by overpressure in collegiate work? It may be unpleasant to confess it, but even our own profession is liable to error, like other professions, and I believe we are sacrificing our victims on the altar of an enthusiasm pushed too far. Meanwhile, there is but one way by which we may develop a corrective influence to restrain and guide us clear of such pitfalls. We must rise up and go out from our offices, our classrooms, our conferences, where most impressive theories may be forever ventilated without successful contradiction, away from the absorbing fumes. This content downloaded from 190.45.108.229 on Tuesday, February 10, 2026, 4 hours 11 minutes and 39 seconds UTC. All use subject to https://about.jster.org/terms. 362 The Modern Moloch. Of professional anxieties and duties out into the wide world where our pupils have gone to meet their fate, and there see them on the farm and in the city, in the factory, the shop, the home, living as citizens, as parents, it may be, rejoicing in days of good fortune or mourning in the hour of trial, and here we shall learn at last to know whom we have really saved and whom we have sacrificed. We must go and talk with the men and women who were once children in our school, and they can tell us, as none other can, how our theoretic methods have turned out amid the stern realities of life's long battle. If we do this, we shall find already hundreds in Europe and America who have paid their price, and have duly received such power of communication with society by speech and lip reading as could be given. How goes the day? Writhe them. Do not select the chosen few, who have reached exceptional success, and herald these abroad as representatives of their class. This may throw dust in the eyes of the public, but it cannot deceive the trained expert in our work. Besides, this is a barefaced falsehood in logic, an insincerity that science brands as criminal. The few gifted ones are precisely those who need concern us least. It is the mass of them, the humble mediocre ones, undistinguished by exceptional attainments and therefore quickly hurried back into convenient obscurity, to whom we must go for the real, honest, and courageous test of our work. And how is it at the present time? From the Baltic to the Mediterranean, from the Danube and the Rhine to the Mississippi, a widespread murmur of disappointment, dissatisfaction, and protest is beginning to be heard. For a generation past, almost superhuman efforts have been made from Germany to Wisconsin to perfect the pure oral method, yet its actual results under the tests of life are proving a profound disappointment. The very beneficiaries of that method are declaring that it is insufficient. This content downloaded from 190.45.108.229 on Tuesday, February 10, 2026, 4 hours 11 minutes and 39 seconds UTC. All use subject to https://about.jster.org/terms. The Modern Moloch. 363 On every side they are falling back with a sense of relief upon the sign language and manual spelling, because these quickly satisfy an ineradicable need of head and heart, a longing for something forever missed in artificial speech and lip reading. Among many gathering evidences, listen to the testimony of one who has recently taken the pains to visit the countries of Europe thoroughly, and observe the universal reception accorded to him by the adult deaf of all nations, simply because they know he represents not the narrow method that excludes all but speech and lip reading, but the broader system that includes all that may render more full and happy the life of silence. I myself saw his reception by the deaf of Great Britain, and nothing could exceed the warmth of his welcome. The earnest sincerity of his testimony compels the respect even of the most emphatic opponents, and seems all but conclusive to the open-minded. Yet there are those who would blind their eyes to all these things, and with a zealous enthusiasm, more credit able to the heart than to the head, push forward their favorite method to the exclusion of all else. With a desperate determination to prove that it is possible, at least, whether sensible and practical or not, to teach speech and lip reading to the deaf of all descriptions, they place speech and lip reading upon a lofty pinnacle of idolatry, so high that no sacrifice can be too great to achieve it. Have we not here a repetition of that form of excessive zeal, even in a good cause, which overleaps itself, and rushes perilously near to that peculiar state of mind which is willing to sacrifice all things, not black diamond excepting humanity itself, in order to promote its own creed among men? Let every earnest open-minded student of the things that concern our beloved work cast his eye over the field to Dav, and, remembering the stern lessons of history, read this content downloaded from 190.45.108.229 on Tuesday, February 10, 2026, 4 hours 11 minutes and 39 seconds UTC. All use subject to https://about.jster.org/terms. 364A Spelling Test. Guarding the possible errors of well-meaning men when captivated by a creed, a theory, or a cause, ask himself in all sincerity these questions: are we making or shall we make martyrs to the cause of education? Are we unconsciously making of our schools mere laboratories for the determined vindication of prearranged hypotheses, ignoring whatever may happen in the distant afterlife of the children, once they have departed from our doors forever? These are unpleasant questions to face, yet we shall face them squarely, if our intentions are honest. Gazing upon the strange sad lesson of history, again and again repeated, surely we shall not go blindly forward, and presently add to the dark record another example for future generations to study as a curious illustration of persistent human fatuity. J. A. Tillinghast, headmaster of the Ulster Institution, Belfast, Ireland. A Spelling Test I. Under the direction of Dr. Leitner Widener, University of Pennsylvania, a number of mental tests of school children have been made by officials of public schools in Philadelphia and elsewhere. One of the most interesting of these tests was so simple that teachers were at first inclined to reject it as worthless. The pupils were given pencil and paper and told to write all the words they could think of in 15 minutes. The words were written one after another in vertical columns. It was desired that pupils should write words just as they came into mind, that no selection should be made. The easiest way to attain this end was to urge that the pupils should write as fast as possible, so as to give little opportunity for reject. This content downloaded from 190.45.108.229 on Tuesday, February 10, 2026, 4 hours 11 minutes and 39 seconds UTC. All use subject to https://about.jster.org/terms.